Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I definitely had to share this with you. This man, he is reading a story that somebody sent him, okay? It's not him, okay? A guy told him that he was sleeping with his sister's husband. Okay, he was openly LGBTQ, and he was living with the sister, and the husband was on the down low, and they started sleeping together. And he says that it cost his sister, well, it cost her her life. I'm going to be quiet right now. Listen to this, baby. Y'all, just listen to this.
I tell this story for empowerment, and I tell this story for educational purposes. I want to talk about the time that I started an affair with my sister's husband and how this cost my sister her life. About 5 years ago, I ran into very hard times, and I ended up having to move with my sister and her then husband. Her husband had always been very chilly towards me, kind of standoffish, act like he didn't want to really hold a conversation or be seen standing talking with me or whatever. It seemed like the only time he would talk to me is when no one was looking. That was the first red flag. The second red flag was I noticed that although they both worked from home and they had all day to, do whatever it is that they wanted to do, I worked during the long days and I would come home late at night, roughly around 11 midnight. They would wait until I come home. He rather would wait until I came home. And once I got settled in bed, all of a sudden he would want to make love to my sister. And he would do it in this very loud way, like really be giving it to her where the headboard is bumping the wall and she's hooting and hollering up in delight. That was the second red flag. I decided one day to get some payback. One day my sister was out with her girls and it was just me and him in the house. So I invited one of my dates over, and me and my date, we go on edit. We kind of loud with it or whatever. And as I'm walking my date to the door after we were finished, I noticed that he's huffing, he's puffing, he's steaming. He looks really pissed off. And when I let my date out the door, he went to their bedroom and he slammed the door like he had an attitude. That should have been the third red flag. But I'm thinking that he's just on some homophobic shit. I'm not really thinking much of it. The more I started to live there, the conversations he would have with me in private when my sister wasn't around had started to become very risque. Like he had mentioned to me that he wanted to try backdoor intimacy with my sister, if you get my drift. He didn't want the front door intimacy no more. He wanted to try backdoor intimacy because he wanted to know what the hype was about, why men like to give it to other men in the back door. I thought that was kind of strange that he had that conversation with me. I would notice that, he would give me long, strange looks or whatever. So I started to notice that the more time I spent with him alone, I was growing very, very attracted to him. So one day I just went in for the kill. I decided that I was going to have a very risque conversation on my phone while he was listening. I knew he was in the living room playing his game or whatever, and so I was in the kitchen and I'm on my phone and I'm talking to a friend and I'm telling him about this park in a city where a lot of men go to at nighttime to hook up. A lot of men, they'll put on ski masks, and a lot of these men are DL men, but they put on these ski masks because they don't want to be identified. They'll go to this park and be all kind of, flamboyant gay men in this park behind bushes or whatever, and they meet up and be intimate with these men in the dark behind these bushes or whatever. They go get back in their car, take their ski mask off, pull off, go home to their wives, baby mamas like nothing ever happened. So I was having a conversation with my friend about it out loud, and I could see that the more I talked about it, I noticed that the decibel volume on the TV was becoming very low. He was lowering the volume on the TV so he could really tune into my conversation, but he was kind of doing it very discreetly. So I told him, I was telling my friend where the location of the park is, and that sometimes I go to this park, just for the real little laughs or whatever. And boom. Wait till I tell y'all what happened next. I was not shocked when I actually pulled up to this park and I got out. Maybe a half an hour later, I noticed that a familiar SUV pulled up. It was his black SUV that pulled up at this park where, down low men are. And I noticed his stature. I can tell his stature from a mile away. I obviously live with him. So, but this person got on a ski mask or whatever. And so when this person got out the car and they walked into this DL dark park where all these DL men are, and they're hooking up with all the homosexuals, whatever. As soon as I saw this person get close to me, which is my sister's husband, I started to rub on him and rub on his member downstairs or whatever. And I could tell that even through the ski mask, and I was wearing a ski mask at the time, he kind of looked at me like he knew who I was, but there were no words exchanged. He immediately grabbed my hand, led me to a nearby bush where could nobody see us. We do our thing. That was the first time that I had slept with my sister's husband. After the deed was over, he went and got in his car, went home. I went and got in my car, went home. We didn't talk about it. We acted as if the whole thing never happened. And that started to become our regular routine. Like when he would see me leave at night, get dressed, put on my, fitted jogging pants and with my behind showing with my sexy underwear. When he would see me get dressed, put my cologne on and leave, he already knew where I was headed. So next thing I know, as soon as I would get to the park, half an hour later, he would be pulling up. This was our routine. We did this affair carried on for months. I started to notice, though, after months of us having this affair, I would hear him and my sister having these very loud, dragged down arguments and fights about they hadn't been intimate or whatever. Their relationship had been going downhill. Meanwhile, the intimacy between us, although we never exchanged words when we would be intimate in the park or whatever, it had grown a little closer, where he used to just do a quick pound town, thank you, ma'am, and get his, rocks off. It had started to become very love-making. He would start to really grind into me as we would get into it and, grab on me and hold my hand, while we were doing it or whatever. So I just kind of knew that, he was really starting to fall for it. Meanwhile, like I said, things were kind of feeling at home between them. They weren't being intimate or whatever. And I had this sad epiphany. He had the perfect life, or what he thought was the perfect life. He had did what he set out to do with my sister. He had made kids with her, and he used my sister as his beard. She was his arm piece. He was showing the public that he had this white picket fence life, the wife, the kids, whatever. But when it came to intimacy and passion and love making, that's where I came in, and that's what he needed. So, but I had to realize at what risk. I was sabotaging my sister's marriage, and I started to feel guilty about it. One day, I decide to go to the normal park or whatever, but I hid out in a spot that he wasn't familiar with. I knew this park like the back of my hand. I hid out in a spot, and I waited for him, and he get out the car, and I noticed that he's looking for me at our normal spot. He don't see me. Meanwhile, there are homosexuals that are walking up to him, trying to grab on his junk, feel all over him. He's showing them away. He don't want nothing to do with them. When he noticed that he didn't see me, he couldn't find me, he eventually got his car and left. So it was at that moment I knew that he was falling for me. I had made a horrible mistake. I had never meant for it to go that far. So I decided I had saved enough money. Without even warning him or my sister, I just packed my things. I left, and I left town. My entire world was turned upside down when 6 months later I had moved to a whole nother town, and I'm living my life, and I had found peace, I had found happiness, but I get a phone call from my mother stating that our sister had died as a victim of domestic violence. Apparently, they had gotten to a very bad argument or whatever, and he had just took all his anger and frustrations out on my sister, and unfortunately, it unalived her. I still live with the guilt of that. I still live with the pain and the guilt of that affair, because I do feel like starting that affair with my sister's husband caused the rift in their marriage, and it caused the, downfall of what happened, what ended up ultimately happening to my sister. It ended up costing her life, and now her children, my nieces and nephews, are without a mom. So that is the story. I tell this story for educational purposes. This is not my story, though. One of my followers emailed me this story and asked me to tell this story to, bring education and awareness to Black women to be careful and just be safe when you're dealing with DL men or whatever. And I actually started this series where I've encouraged people, to tell me their stories, and I will tell their stories anonymously on my page. So I want to thank that young man from Ohio, and that's all I'll say. I won't give any more details, for telling me your story. And anybody else that have DL stories that have changed your life or put them in dangerous situations, you can DM me your story, and I promise to keep your story very anonymous, but I will definitely tell your story in a storytelling fashion. Thank you so much. And do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also posted it on my page yesterday. Thank you.
Baby, 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 baby. He is just trifling, okay? The brother, the guy who wrote him is trifling to do that to your own sister, endangering her health, hooking up with random men at the park or whatever to sleep with them. And that's your sister's husband. Okay, look, we know the statistics when it comes to black women catching HIV because of these down low bisexual men. That man is dabbling in a high risk pool. Okay, I don't know if he was using protection or not. And then her husband is sleeping with him, hooking up at the park. He's hooked up with other men at that park. So God knows what's going on. And then he's coming back to his sister. Okay, so he said that. Now, rest in peace to the sister. The sister's life was taken because a lot of down low men are very aggressive. They have a lot of pent up anger because they're not living in their truth. A lot of men who snap on women have those sassy attitudes, sucking his teeth, don't want to pay for nothing, want to treat you like you ain't even a woman. A lot of them are down low because they want to see you like a man. They don't value you as a woman. They're upset that they're pretending to be straight to be with you. He fell for the brother. And when the brother just went and left, he was heartbroken. Okay, because he was sleeping with the brother and then he took it out on the sister. Okay, now some people might think, well, did he really know that was the brother because they were wearing ski masks at the park? But look, he was watching him. He was studying him. So he knew what kind of cologne he was wearing. He knew the outfit that he was wearing, even though he had on a ski mask. They knew what was going on. Then coming back home, pretending that nothing is going on and having conversations with each other, catching feelings, and then going for their little hookup every single week. Okay, he said that the first red flag is that he would talk about nobody. Hold on, I think he was talking bad or something. I'm gonna skip that, the first red flag that he said, but he said the second red flag is that he was sleeping with the sister and making sure that the headboard, you could hear her moaning and all of that. That's because he wanted to try to prove to him that he was masculine. Like, look, I'm still a man. I'm not bothered by your presence. Let me show you what a man is. A lot of men on the DL do that a lot. They try to say, I'm a man, I'm a man. They try to overcompensate for a lot of things to prove their masculinity. That does happen a lot. Okay, so let's see. And the third flag that he said is that he tested him. He brung a man over, her brother, and he had smecks with him loud. And then he got mad, the husband, and was slamming doors and pretending to be all offended, like he had a problem with two men having smecks, when really he was upset because he probably wanted to join in, but he had to pretend with the sister that he was straight and everything. Okay, so, and we know what happened. They ended up hooking up. And what kind of brother are you? What kind of brother are you to do that to your sister? Okay, someone that will do that to you. Does he really love his sister? You might have love for her, but you don't truly love her that you would sleep with her man. Okay, if you really loved her like that, you wouldn't even dare do something like that. Okay, being her brother. That's just disgusting to me. And again, high risk. A lot of those men hooking up at the parks and in the black LGBTQ or whatever, high risk HIV group. He's already been hooking up with these stranger men at the park. Now you went to her husband, endangering her health. That's how I feel. Yes, he did. And then he finally got a conscience and started feeling guilty about what he's doing to his own sister. And you know what? It wasn't his sister. Because he said once he realized that the husband caught feelings for him, then he realized, oh, I'm in too deep. What am I doing? Okay, then he just packed up and randomly left. 6 months later, he took his sister's life. I don't know if he took it with a GUN. I don't know if he used his fist, but he said domestic violence. His sister is not here. He feels guilty because he knows that the husband was on the down low, caught feelings, and that perhaps he took his anger for being on the down low out on his sister and fallen in love with him, and did that to the sister. He said that he stopped sleeping with the sister. They were arguing because he's up in his bussy every single week and he's neglecting his wife and not giving it to her. Okay, because he was on the DL. So this is just messy. This is a doggone shame. I feel for the sister more than anything who's no longer here. And now he has to walk on the earth knowing that he was secretly sleeping with his own sister's husband. How trifling can you be? It's absolutely disgusting. I want to know, how do you feel about this? And baby, I think this might be a little bit more common than people want to admit to, because I just read another story that just popped up on Instagram of a woman who said that she found out that her brother is sleeping. Hold on. Her father is sleeping with her husband, and that her mother knew that the mama knew that her daddy was into men, but told her to stay with him because the men who sleep with men, they'll still love you good. I'm telling you, I might read this story. So that is it for this video. Let me know what you think about this crazy story. So that is it for today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell for all notifications so you know when I'm live and when I'm posting. I'm uploading my shorts and everything. And let me know, have any of you ever been in a situation like this?